People who grew up with strict parents, what was their most unreasonable rule? Have a friend who isn't allowed to go out if he's already had too much fun this weekend. That's the only reason. They think he'll become corrupted if he has too much fun and that he won't know how to work. He's in college. How was your weekend? Oh, really boring. Didn't have any fun. Victory. This actually hits home for me a bit. I was raised that way, and now in my adult life I find myself not having fun almost on purpose. I was not allowed to talk to boys. One Christmassy day, I was doing last minute shopping in the downtown of our little town. I ran into two male friends from my German class and we talked for several minutes and wished each other a Merry Christmas. Oh, I was 15 at the time. My older sister drove by and saw me, told my parents I was hanging out with boys. When I walked in the house both my parents were waiting, and the yelling began. Some Christmas Eve. Parents who do the whole no boys thing are setting their daughters up to cling to the first guy, to give them any attention, even if it's not positive or healthy. Kids need to experiment and find out what works, otherwise they wind up trapped by inexperience and in shitty relationships. I wasn't allowed to say I died on Mario. I lost one of my chances to succeed. I had a ton. I think the most unreasonable was that we, my siblings and I, weren't allowed to know where we were going during car rides. If we'd ask we were told business and figure it out we were going to the store, etc. only after we arrived to our destination. This lasted until I moved out. Another was asking for permission to use the bathroom every time. This didn't last as long. My best friend growing up had the thing about not asking where we were going, or really any question at all. Her parents didn't like being asked questions, so you had to avoid it at all costs. You also weren't allowed to drink with your meals. It was strange, because we always get drinks with our food in my family. It's hard for me to eat without drinking, cause my mouth and throats get dry and hurt and I would basically be choking, but you couldn't get a drink of water until after you were finished eating. If you said you were done to get something to drink and then wanted more food they would say no, you had your drink, now you can't eat anymore. It was very odd, I really don't understand it. I avoided meals there as much as possible. Edit. For those who keep bringing it up, no, their family was not weirdly religious, and no, it was not about weight or health. Everyone was healthy and of normal weight. They just didn't allow you to drink with your food. I never heard them explain why. Also, we were not little kids who couldn't balance eating and drinking at the same time. We were like 12 and our oldest siblings were 14 to 17 and this went on for years. Last time I ate there I was 18 and that was still the rule. I changed my mind. I guess my parents weren't so bad. Edit. Wow. Went for a hike today out of self-service and returned to 9k comma and 30 plus comments. Since a couple people asked what I was going to say. It sounds pretty lame now compared to the rest of this thread, but I'll explain a few. We weren't allowed to swim in rivers. We were rarely allowed to go to friends' houses unless the parents knew each other. We weren't allowed to go anywhere on our own until we could drive, which was 18 for me, and just the usual strict parent pushing to get all A's. No trends or passing fads. Pokemon, banned. Barbies, banned. Beanie Babies, banned. PlayStation/Gamma Boys, banned. Anything particularly fashionable or popular regardless of actual merit was met with derision and we'd be mocked for even suggesting interest. We were achingly frumpy kids with interests and cultural references, or lack thereof, that isolated us from our peers and they wondered why each of us were bullied. My parents were slack. My best friend's parents were so strict. She would escape to my house for freedom. 12th grade. Prom. Her parents allowed her to go to prom, but said she wasn't allowed to dance. We all went to prom, had fun dancing, until she saw her parents standing at the back watching. She then moved out for university. After her first year, she came home to work for the summer. She had been on her own for a year and supporting herself, and her parents gave her a 9 p.m. curfew. She spent a lot of time at my house that summer. She was married by the next summer and didn't have to deal with it. Edit. This is a small selection of the intense upbringing my friend went through. Tiny even. I had a friend who wasn't allowed to sit on the couch, no matter the circumstances. That was the first time I realized something was really wrong in his house. The kicker, it was a crappy couch, so it's not like he was going to ruin it. Edit, responding to a gazillion people at once. To the folks looking for logic, you'll find none. No, the parents weren't saving the couch for company. No, the kids didn't have a history of damaging the couch. No, the kids weren't little troublemakers. They were surprisingly well-behaved teens. Surprising because of how they were raised. This is about control, not logic. Domestic abuse is always about exerting control. Don't let anyone try to convince you otherwise. Even after adding a note about child abuse, I'm still getting jokes about how my friend must be a dog. Thanks, Reddit. My grandfather did that. All my siblings had to sit on the wood floor. I think he had the same couch for 30+ years. He also didn't allow us to take showers or baths because they wasted water, so we would crouch miserably in an empty tub and scoop handfuls of water over ourselves to clean, even in the middle of winter. For every minute I was late coming in from curfew, I got grounded a week. I once spent 10 weeks grounded due to a sobriety checkpoint. Dad was a narcissist. Biggest rule in the house was not to make any noise around him. If he was home, the whole house got quiet and tense. Even my mom used to eat her cereal in the bedroom because she'd get in trouble for chewing crunchy food. Now she's long rid of him and married to a way better guy, but she still apologizes for eating crackers. I wasn't allowed to shrug or say I don't know. If anything tech related went wrong, it was assumed that I broke it on purpose, even if the only reason anyone knew it was broken is because I was trying to fix it. Birthday parties were a no-go. Christmas was a no-go. Any party whatsoever was a no-go. I have too many to name growing up in an Asian household, but the one that was the most embarrassing was I was not allowed to shave my legs or armpits, and I hit puberty at an early age. So I had really hairy armpits and legs, and was forced to wear shorts to gym class. I was so embarrassed about my legs that I would wear shorts with opaque pantyhose, which just made the whole situation worse and was the butt of many jokes in middle school. My mom has apologized thousands of times since, but it still brings back crappy memories. Freshman year of high school, I had one of those wispy poo statues that all teenage boys have. My mother refused to let me shave. I got called everything from pedo stash to dirty Sanchez. 15 years later, the joke's on her. I have a long ass Viking beard and she constantly bitches at me to shave. Sorry mum, can't. Not allowed. Was forced to drop out of school in the 5th grade because my grandmother believed that most people have no souls and were demon possessed. She said that the world was unsafe to roam freely because Satan was trying to corrupt God's children. This led to a very sheltered life and very silly things like having to pray over every individual item that entered the house. Food, toiletries, dish soap, you name it. I'd get woken up at 2 AM to be screamed at for 3+ hours over something God had told her that I did wrong. So yeah, I guess the most unreasonable rule I grew up with was not being allowed to leave the house. Edit. Okay, I get it. Apparently my life was Binding of Isaac's storyline. There were a lot, but the most ridiculous one to me was they didn't want me volunteering during high school. I was visiting the elderly, and they said it was too dangerous to be around strangers like that, and the time was taking away from my studies. Most extracurriculars I wanted to do they had a huge problem with, but it didn't hit me how absurd it was until it was about senior citizens. My mom was insanely controlling about food. Weird rules were in place, like 1 slice of lunch meat per sandwich. No one but her was allowed to cook. She'd make one giant batch of spaghetti or something, and we'd have leftovers for days, so she only had to make dinner twice a week. She did not work or anything, just didn't like cooking every day. Breakfast was cold cereal and you'd only be allowed a small bowl with just enough milk to moisten it. Occasionally she'd bake something she called corn toasties, which was simply cornbread baked in a sheet pan. She'd cut them into squares and fill the freezer with them, and we could have one of those for breakfast as an alternative. Once when I was 14 I bought a pack of hot dogs at the store, snuck them home, and lit the grill. I was almost done cooking them when she came out screaming about fire hazards and swatted the plate out of my hand. She had been making spaghetti. What an ungrateful little bastard I was. So then she orders a pizza for the rest of my family, wraps individual servings of spaghetti in freezer paper, and puts them away. She tells me that I will be eating nothing else until it's all gone. Took about 2 months to choke it all down. Went without eating a lot of days. I was also grounded for over a year, but I sure learned a lot about consequences. Females of the family must cook and clean on holidays, while males watch TV. Must bus males' plates every night. No visiting friends' houses, no friends over at our house all the way through high school. Hair cannot be cut at or above shoulder. 7 PM bedtime. Not curfew. Bedtime. Through junior high. Strictly enforced. Needless to say, I rebelled strong and hard.